why are peptides so interesting and why are they so different from pharmaceuticals or traditional drugs?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a very simple answer. They absolutely treat the fundamental root cause of whatever it is, the illness, the disease, or the dysregulation is, versus big pharma medications, when they break down in the system, their petroleum distillate, they cause side effects. And then those side effects can break down other things in other systems. So you have issues, whereas with peptides, you don't have that.
You hear a lot about mitochondrial health.
Sure.
You hear this in the, quote unquote biohacking. Now you're hearing it in the wellness space. Is this an important place to look? Is this something you should be concerned about, your mitochondrial health? And then if so, why?
We like, as we age, to want to optimize our mitochondrial so that our mitochondrial health is firing on all phases, right? Like we have good energy, we feel good about ourselves, we sleep well. But if we go down like the peptides and the bioregulators and even the supplement space now, we're in a complete golden age, Sal, of products that literally you can orally swallow, you can inject, you can put them on your skin that can help optimize the mitochondria. If you're a fat person and you're metabolically dysregulated and you start on 2 milligrams or 5 milligrams, unfortunately, of say semaglutide or tirzepatide, and you stop eating, you see the weight drop off in the first 2 weeks and you're like, this is a fucking miracle. And so you're so happy and you're so excited, but you don't have us coaching you, and all of a sudden,
metabolic adaptation,
3 weeks later, your thyroid breaks, you can't process calories anymore. I mean, it's like you're a nightmare. You become a metabolic emergency.
Jay, welcome back to the show.
Guys, it's an honor to be here, man. As always, I love you guys and grateful to be here. For
Good time. I love texting Jay. He's the peptide king. I call him the peptide king, and he's also one of my favorite people to talk to about everything, cutting edge, gray market. Because you're not held back. You'll tell me
zero filter. Yeah,
and you'll go straight down rabbit holes and just break things down. So I love talking to someone like you because you tend to talk about things that then 5-10 years later, people come out and say, hey, this is the deal. Yeah. So let's start with, you hear a lot about mitochondrial health.
Sure.
You hear this in the, quote unquote biohacking. Now you're hearing it in the wellness space. Take this, do this. This is good for mitochondrial health. This will help your mitochondria. I want to start there with you, Jay. Is this an important place to look? Is this something you should be concerned about, your mitochondrial health? And then if so, why?
Yeah. Again, first off, it's an honor to be here, guys. I love you guys. I'm grateful to be here. It's always awesome to talk to you. Happy holidays.
Thank you.
I know it's been a crazy year for a lot of different people. Hopefully, as we get into 2025, things change, Yeah. Hope is in the air. Yeah. Hope is in the air.
Well, we're waiting for the alien invasion.
I'm sure that's coming.
I got a bunker for that.
Real or staged, right? Yeah. But yeah, so mitochondrial health, the mitochondria, for those, and I go, your audience is super educated, but for people who don't know, the mitochondria, as we learned in, I think, 101 biology, are the powerhouse of the cells, right? So we like, as we age, to want to optimize our mitochondrial so that our mitochondrial health is firing on all phases, right? Like we have good energy, we feel good about ourselves, we sleep well. And so, yeah, it's become a buzzword now, I think, in the biohacking space on like optimizing our mitochondria. And there's a lot of ways to do it, right? Like better sleep. You can use red light therapy. I'm a big proponent of medical grade red light therapy, as I've told you in the past. I think that there's a lot of red light devices out there. I don't want to rabbit hole on this, but there's a lot of red light devices out there that are not doing as good a job as some of the other ones. But if you're in a really high quality medical grade red light device and you do it 2 or 3 times a week, and some people do it every day if they have like autoimmune disease and stuff like that, really is awesome. Again, always getting really good sleep, getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night. But if we go down like the peptides and the bioregulators and even the supplement space now, we're in a complete golden age, Sal, of products that literally you can orally swallow, you can inject, you can put them on your skin that can help optimize the mitochondria. Now, nothing is going to be optimized mitochondrial if you're not also doing all the things that you guys always talk about, right? Living insulin controlled, eating clean, getting enough sleep, doing proper resistance and cardiovascular exercise. But there's a lot of amazing things in the marketplace.
Okay, so let's start with let's start with supplements. The one I always hear about that's advertised for mitochondrial health is NAD.
Sure.
So what do you think of NAD supplements, or do you think are they a waste of time? Is it better to go IV, injectable?
And as we go through these, Jay, tell me, because our audience is very privy to red light therapy. I mean, we've been talking about Juve for a very long time and had them on the show. And so as we go through these supplements and you kind of explain to us, also give me an idea of how they weigh against each other. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So NAD, I literally just did a podcast in Houston yesterday with a big hedge fund guy that wanted to talk about peptides and bioregulators. And we got deep into the rabbit hole on NAD. And this is my pet theory, and obviously it's a little bit based on science. NAD is totally relevant to the individual person. Some people can use NAD supplements, IVs, injections, patches, and get amazing results, and other people get nothing. And if you do an NAD test, and there is an actual test, Dr. Shi, I think you guys know who Dr. Shi is. He's like the Chinese expert. Yeah. So anyway, he's been on my podcast. Really smart, awesome guy. You know, he was pushing me for like 2 years to like promote his product. And I was like, no, dude, I don't feel it. You know, I've done the patches, I've injected it, I've done the IVs, blah, blah, blah. And I just don't get it. So he's like, well, I want to get you on the test. And I was like, there's a test for NAD. He's like, yeah, it's really expensive, but I'll pay for it, blah, blah, blah. We'll do it. So whatever. So anyway, I tested. He'll say this. He'll admit it to you. I tested the highest of any person he's ever tested for NAD. So he was like, well, it makes sense. I'm like, I told you, I never felt it. But my wife, she loves NAD, right? She puts the patches on. We have a guy, I forget his name, Dr. Roy Korth in Columbus, who makes his company's called Push Patch, and he sends them to us, and she wears them all the time. So the answer to your question is, I think NAD is just relevant to a person's individual genetics. I think some people are deficient in NAD just from a coenzyme standpoint or just from molecular standpoint. They just don't have a lot of NAD production. And then others like me can use NAD all day and feel nothing. But to your question and comparing it to red light, I think IVs of NAD are great for people who've traveled internationally or who are, time deficited or have circadian rhythm dysregulation. I think they're awesome, and you would do them maybe like once or twice a month in that capacity. But from a regular standpoint, for people that use them all the time, again, it just depends on if you're naturally deficient in NAD due to lifestyle. The one thing that I will say that I've seen in a great number of people about NAD is like that fatter and more metabolically dysregulated you are, the more you're going to feel NAD optimization or supplementation because you don't have any NAD naturally. And so like when you take a peptide, like you guys are familiar with MOTS-C, right? Yep. And you give a heavier, metabolically dysregulated person MOTS-C, they are all like, whoa, dude, like I feel all this energy. I want to go out and exercise, which is great, right? Because we want to get them to exercise. We want to get them to change their habits. But a leaner, more insulin controlled, more muscular, metabolically fit people like us in this room, we're probably not going to feel it. I had a conversation with Ben Pekulski. I know you guys all love Ben. Shout out to Ben. BPAC about that a couple of years ago. And he was like, I never thought about that. But a lot of my heavier guys that I train or work with, they would always tell me they love it, and I could never really feel it when I was using MOTS-C. I was like, well, that's the reason. And so he was like, oh, you know what? That makes a lot of sense. But there are outliers. There are people that are fit who do use MOTS-C and do feel well. And I know Seeds loves it. There's a lot of people that love MOTS-C, but again, I think it just comes down to the individual person.
This makes so much sense, and especially talking about the NAD and my personal experience, because we've done quite a few. I've done pill stuff, I've done IV, we've done all the push patches. Yeah. I actually felt the most from the push patch. Now, hearing what you're explaining, and so far, almost nothing I've really felt. So I've never been a big fan of it. And that makes sense because I'm probably healthier. And the time that I felt the push patch was coming off of being sick.
Exactly.
So that actually, I was like, oh, I do feel this. This does feel much better. And my wife, she has used it several times and she loves it. She feels it. But all the other times I'd done it, I've been like, this doesn't really feel like it. And when I was so excited to do the IV because I figured that would be the best.
Noticed nothing.
But we all noticed nothing. We all got hooked up. We did it. And we're like, yeah.
So NAD and glutathione in an IV when you're depressed, when your nervous system's depressed, like, and if you go out and you tie one on or whatever and you just completely shoot your central nervous system in the foot, you'll feel a lot because, again, it's just like upregulating your mitochondria. I mean, it's like a ramjet of energy. But again, for fit people, we just don't notice it.
It makes so much sense now.
It reminds me of having a nutrient deficency and then taking that nutrient, like vitamin D.
And all of a sudden, boom.
Yeah, if you're deficient in vitamin D, you take vitamin D, it's life-changing. If you don't, if you're not deficient, you're not going to feel anything from
That's like magnesium, right? That's how that is for a lot of people too. Like that was like life-changing for me to get my magnesium on point because I was so deficient in it. So that makes a lot of sense.
Is NAD or glutathione, for example, I have injectable glutathione and I only use it if I drink alcohol or I do anything that is going to strain or stress my liver.
That's exactly
Would that be, okay, so would that also be a good time to use something like NAD, like you said?
100%. 100%. Yeah, because it's just going to supercharge and fire them on. That's all it's going to do. And again, if you're heavy and dysregulated and you're starting a program, maybe you're somebody in the audience listening to you guys who's not as fit, and wants to get fit, I think it's a great supplement. So we didn't talk about that. We're talking about peptides, injectables, and IVs, but there is a supplement. She makes a supplement. And again, I don't promote it. I know you guys don't promote it, but it's a really amazing powder. and I forget the name of it or whatever, but it's out there and people can supplement with that. So, I mean, I really do think it's
and does he use a precursor to NAD in there?
It's a precursor in his supplement, actually.
That's right.
It's a powder with it in it. But I think it's a great supplement for people who are not otherwise healthy and probably have some weight to lose to throw in as an adjunct when they're attempting to get fit. Because again, it will give them energy technically.
Whenever somebody asks me about mitochondrial health, I always point to creatine. Because generally speaking, it's extremely safe, increases the amount of ATP, which fuels your cells. I said this 10 years ago on our podcast, how I predicted that creatine would be the longevity supplement. And now we're starting to see that. What are you seeing with creatine?
That's 100% true. It's so crazy we're talking about creatine because today on X, there's a massive Twitter thread going around about creatine. And they're talking, because now the tech bros love it for the brain health, right? So we all know that creatine does the ATP and helps with glycogen restoration and repletion and all that stuff. But the real benefit of creatine is brain health, right? Because so many people are deficient. And oh, by the way, if you're a vegan, shout out to all of our vegan friends, they're not getting any creatine.
Yeah. No.
So they have to take creatine, right? So you need 5 milligrams at a minimum if you're vegan or if you're just not eating any kind of red meat daily to maximize brain health. But there's no question that you can take higher dosages of creatine. It's just, again, depending on how fast of a responder you are to it, whether you're going to pee it out or not. Because remember back in the old days, they were like, oh, it took 25 minutes.
Load you for loading phase.
The only thing we loaded up was the pockets of the supplement companies that were selling that. You got to put grape juice.
Get your insulin to spike. Take the creatine.
We'll shuttle it.
There were loading protocols, right? 25 grams today and 20 tomorrow.
What's interesting on that is if you look at the when they do studies on IQ and creatine, vegans show a boost in IQ from taking creatine.
100%. Because they have zero creatine in their diet.
Their body has to synthesize it through the amino acids they're consuming, which is probably also low. So they're just not getting enough across. Also helps with methylation, right?
Yes.
Dr. Seed said probably one of the best supplements because it's a methylated. It spares the methylation process and allows it to happen in other places.
I think every person, to a man or woman, should be on 5 milligrams a day. I'm sorry, 5 grams a day. You should literally take 5 grams a day. I mean, if it's in a supplement, a powder or capsules. I mean, again, it really comes down to the person. Like hell. Anal retentive are you to take supplements? Because that's the other thing. And you guys, I don't want to rabbit hole again, but like a lot of people just forget to take supplements.
That's right.
Oh yeah.
That's why we think the new trend of gummy supplements,
the gummy kick, man,
is so brilliant because
they'll eat them.
They'll eat them
more likely,
and they'll take them, which is the biggest challenge. I read a study once that showed that people are more consistent with giving their pets their meds than taking
my
themselves.
wife puts little packets of, when she goes away, she has literally little plastic bags for my little rat dog and my pit bull. This is morning and this is night. And my 2 daughters and me, she literally calls us at the end of the day and it's like, did they get their vitamins? I'm like, did you take yours, baby?
I've said that creatine is probably the best fat burning supplement there is through the indirect process of building muscle. How do you feel about positioning it that way?
I mean, I think it's great. I mean, I think just the final say all and be all on creatine is get yourself 5 grams of it a day. And if you're not, you're going to be deficient in something and you're not going to have the effects that you get from people that use it.
Hey, if you want peptide-based skincare products, use Luminos by Intera. Click on this link right here. All right, let's go. Okay, let's get fun now with some of these peptides. I brought up an article, I want to say maybe 6 months to a year ago, they said it was the peptide that it was an exercise mimic. So you take this peptide, and what they found in these animal studies was it essentially started causing adaptations in the animals that you would see from exercise, except they weren't exercising. And the result was they had more stamina, more endurance. They saw some fat loss and some strength gain, some muscle gain. And so that the title of the article was like, exercise in a bottle or something like that. And I brought it up. We talked about it. I'm like, this is so crazy and weird or whatever. Anyway, fast forward 6 months later.
It's out there.
I'm texting you and Jay's like, dude, you got to try this peptide.
So if it works on rats.
And he sends me, and he writes it out, and it's this long, it's like SLUPP332 or something like that.
Sloop.
And I'm like,
John B.
Wait a minute. Is this the one that I talked about a while ago? And sure enough, it was. All right, what is this? What is this peptide?
Okay, so it's everything you just said it is. It's basically an estrogen antagonist / agonist. And when people hear that, they freak out. They're like, oh, is it going to attach to my receptors and like increase or decrease my estrogen? No, it has nothing to do with that. It basically just helps with, it's another mitochondrial optimizer in the way that it works cellularly. But All the things that you said, it does. Again, so personally, I've been using Sloop now since the end of July. I started with the company that was the first company in the marketplace to have it, which is Amino Asylum, which are some bodybuilding bros in northern Kentucky, I think, or Lexington, Kentucky, somewhere in that area. And they had a liquid version of it. And then my business partner, Hunter Williams, shout out to Hunter, he started using it first and told me, he's like, bro, this is insane shit. I'm like, no way. I'm like, send me some science about it. And so, of course, everybody reads that article that you talked about because it was done at the University of Florida. And so I started reading them. I was like, why is there not more about this in the science? Why is this not out there? Then I looked at the patents database and it was like, there's like 11 people that hold the patent to it. And it was from 2014, but there's no supplement. So I'm like, what's going on? So anyway, I started using it on myself and I was like, oh my God. I mean, you definitely notice in the very, very first time that you take it within 24 hours, you sweat more. So in your cardio or your training, you're going to sweat more. You're noticeably going to sweat more. And again, it's energy exchange, right? It's turning on your mitochondrial. And then over time, I mean, again, it sounds like a wonder supplement and your audience is probably going to freak out. But for the people in the audience that are using it, because there are a lot of people already using it, they're going to be like, no, he's not bullshitting.
And this is all gray market. You can't get it.
Totally gray market.
Yeah, you can't get this from a doctor.
It's a research chemical.
Okay, thank you.
But here's the thing. It's patented as an obesogen. So it's technically a medically approved drug. It's just not in the market yet.
Wow. So why?
Dude, I have no idea.
You know that worries me.
Well, that's the thing. In the studies, and again, rat studies, but now we have people studies. We have bodybuilders that have been on this for a year, and I'm talking to them. And I'm telling you, I'm not joking when I say this. It's in the studies with rats. It's kidney protective. It's heart protective. There's been no known side effects. The side effects that were known in the rats were literally at a 400 times qualified dose of what people are using right now. And that's even if you were taking 2 milligrams a day. And as you know, like in the bottles and the research chemical companies and the people like I that are selling them, it's 250 micrograms in a capsule. So I've known people now on it, like I said, for 6 months, bodybuilders for close to a year, because it was already in the marketplace evidently in January, which I didn't know, who have had no side effects. And every single one of these people have had insane physique transformations. Like literally bro bodybuilders who never ever diet, right? Who've lost like 7 to 8% body fat in 4 months, just using 500 micrograms to 1,000 micrograms.
Let's back up for a second. Okay, so you were talking about this increases sweating. It can speed up the metabolism.
Yes.
Is this causing, for lack of a better term, inefficiencies with energy? In other words, energy leaks through heat and through. Okay.
Yes.
Is that what we think?
So I mean, who knows? Theoretically,
I mean, that's a guess.
Theoretically, yes. You sweat more. What I can tell you this is there's no elevation of heart rate. It does not disturb sleep at all. Everyone that uses it notices an increased sweating, but they also notice increased firepower. So it's definitely giving you more. And again, mitochondrial, it's supercharging your mitochondria. You can lift more. You're more explosive. Your
Does your core temperature raise at all?
No, it doesn't. It's crazy. Now, some people have noticed, and again, this is more from the fat loss and the sweating. Some people have noticed their HRV might move around a little bit at night when they're really, really tracking it. But that's mostly, again, from the people that I've talked to, that's mostly in people who are not fit. So if you're not as fit, but you see that with people on GLPs, right? Like if they're taking Triple-Hormone-Receptor,
it affects
if they're taking Retatrutide or they're taking semaglutide, of course it's going to change that. But that's also, and again, Seeds talks about this, Dr. Tennant talks about this, that's because they're losing body fat. Right, so their core metabolism is increasing, so their HRV is going to change. It's going to move around. It's not a bad thing because they're obviously reaching a new set point by losing body fat.
And this was a peptide that they found that was released through exercise. That's how they found this peptide. So this is a byproduct of exercise that seems to be a signaler. Like, okay, you exercise, the peptide now gets sent out, telling your body time to adapt, type of deal.
This is how crazy
That's the theory.
We sent out an email today. And again, this is just from a section of people that are in my inner circle and audience, which are obviously in your circle and audience who have been using it. And they're saying it's a bulking peptide too, because again, it's massively allowing for glycogen repletion, and it's allowing you to piss out the excess sugar calories that you would have normally stored for or deposited as body fat. So you can take 1,500 micrograms, 2 milligrams a day and eat, say a caloric surplus of 1,500, 1,000 or whatever it is you're trying to gain weight, and you probably won't gain that much body fat. Again, in the last month have taken my dosage from, I was doing 500 micrograms to 1,000. I'm now up to 1,500 or 2,000, depending on if I'm traveling, if I remember to take my evening dosage, and I've gotten stronger. I'm still super lean. My diet has been absolutely shit the last 5 weeks because I've been traveling back and forth across the country and I don't have my prep meals and just, how it is when you're traveling so much.
Any other effects, cognitive, anything with mood or energy?
My energy is insane.
Well, you're always hyper.
No. I mean, yes, I have obviously a very positive, energetic drive through, therapeutic testosterone and stuff, but I just have more energy at different times of the day. I'm not as tired later in the afternoon. There's a lot of things it's probably doing indirectly that I'm not really countering. And I will also tell you this, it has a sexual effect. So you're definitely more energized when you're in the middle of the deed.
So there's no estrogenic because it's an antagonist of the estrogen receptor?
I've had my blood drawn 3 times. One, because I was in a tracking thing with another person and we were just measuring stuff. And then twice just to see if I'd done anything. I've had absolutely 0 negative effects. My estrogen has stayed somewhere between 55 and 70, which is where I usually keep it. No, I mean, like I said, I've seen nothing. And if anything, and this maybe gets into the GLP conversation when we get there, all my biomarkers are improving. And I know Dr. Tino was telling you guys that she sees that in her patients, Seeds is seeing that in their patients. I mean, to just extrapolate, we're kind of like on the frontier of a giant golden age in optimization. Because all of these drugs, we're also used to drugs with side effects that are negative, right? Like the big pharma, allopathic, Rockefeller petroleum district drugs. Now we have GLPs, and all they're doing for people who are otherwise healthy is improving biomarkers, improving HDL, improving lipo, ApoB, basically blood lipids, small particles. All that stuff is improving. I mean, my blood work in the last 12 months since I started using tirzepatide in a microdose and now retatrutide, and I want to go deep on retatrutide if we can today, it's profound. I sent you that study, right? Yeah. So they just measured retatrutide versus semaglutide versus tirzepatide, and you guys, retatrutide is the most amazing drug in the history of man. It's not even available yet, but it is a Lilly drug.
Is it a triple agonist?
It's a triple agonist.
Okay. Oh, is this the one that Seeds conference they were talking about?
Yeah, so I was at the Peptide Congress. So I spoke at the Peptide Congress, and there was a doctor that went up and talked about...
I remember when Sal came out of that, you went and listened to it by yourself, and he came out like, oh my God, wait till you guys...
Okay, so let me tell you from my standpoint, right? As from a trainer, coach standpoint, right? I see what's happening with GLP-1s. I'm like, okay, and it looks like if you just go on one, you eat less, you lose some muscle if you don't let strength train, don't, eat your protein, whatever. I'm like, it's just, I think the effects are just coming from calorie deficit. It's just making you eat less. So all those effects are coming from a calorie deficit. Boom, they bring up the study, controlled, and they're showing this peptide, this GLP-1, this triple agonist, and they're like, no, we actually compared them against another group in a calorie deficit, same calorie deficit. They lost less muscle and more body fat. So it also has this kind of muscle sparing effect. And then when they went off, when everybody went off, they gained weight much slower than the group that
I'm not lying when I say this. Retatrutide is a miracle drug. It's anabolic.
That's crazy.
It will change bodybuilding. It will change bodybuilding.
How can it be catabolic and anabolic at the same time?
It literally will change bodybuilding. So what's happening
because of the insulin sensitizing
yes,
effect. That's why.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Jason, do you guys know Jason Theobald, Scooby Health?
No.
I'll connect you with him. He's awesome. Okay. He knows more. You definitely need to bring him on the show because he can talk at the highest levels about bodybuilding, competitive bodybuilding, and what's really going on behind the scenes. He's he is a master chemist.
Are the GLP-1s going to the bodybuilding space using GLP-1s?
Oh my God, they're all
bodybuilders using it.
So dude, so he told me, and by the way, his physique is, he's world class. He just competed in like the Masters. He's like a 51-year-old guy and he looks insane.
Okay.
But so I got him to start using retatrutide because he was using a microdose of tirzepatide and he was like, this is incredible. I'm like, bro, you don't know anything yet. I'm like, I'm telling you, retatrutide is anabolic. He's like, bullshit, blah, 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 there's no way. He started using it. He's like, fuck. I was like, I don't know how this is anabolic, but you just nailed it, dude. Like, that's why. It's improving insulin sensitivity so much that any food that you eat is literally, if you're lean, is literally being converted or helping to build skeletal muscle. It's insane. There's nothing like it.
A lot of people don't realize this about insulin. It's actually... some people would argue the most anabolic hormone.
Yes, of course. It's not arguable. It is the most anabolic hormone. That's why bodybuilders use insulin, before workout, after workout. They take 2, 3, 4 IUs of insulin and shuttle glucose into the muscles. But here's the crazy thing. Like, as awesome as Retatrutide is, and by the way, I know this for a fact because I just had a conversation this week with the biggest peptide attorney in the world who doesn't like to have his name used, but he's like involved in all the suits. He represents Big Pharma, he represents the compounders, and he told me that what is in the pipeline that people don't even know about is going to change everything because there's 5 stage agonists. There's anti-catabolic is the 4th, and 5th is, I forget what he told me.
Holy cow.
Is. No, it's completely world changing. Like, you literally will be able to give people these drugs now, and as long as they eat clean, you can turn them into Hulk. I mean, it's like it won't be believable.
It's the superhero serum.
But I'm telling you right now, Retatrutide, if it's used correctly, is a superhero metahuman forming product. I mean, you will literally not gain fat. Again, you're not in a caloric deficit or in an appetite suppressive effect as strong as tirzepatide is, but because it's turning on your metabolism, it's making you eat more. So fitter, leaner people who use this in a microdose, same way, daily or every other day, again, you pick how you want to do it, are seeing the most insane physique transformation.
Sounds like to me, because one of the things I see happening right now is a lot of people that I wouldn't technically recommend for a GLP-1 or taking GLP-1s. I just want to lose a little 5 or 10 pounds, get a little leaner. It sounds like this
is the drug for that.
Yeah, this is the one.
And you guys already know this. It eliminates food noise.
Yeah.
What we're not talking about
that is the trippiest part about
the best part of GLP-1 things about these drugs, which again I know Seeds and Tyne have talked about this, is the reality that it changes brainwave patterning.
Yeah.
And as you said, it's permanent. People who come off these drugs, again, in microdose, this is not talking about people who are, abusing these. And again, just call it quack doctors who write scripts of 6 to 8 to 10 to 12 to 15 milligrams of these things a week. I mean, we're talking about, so people know what we're talking about. A microdose of Retatrutide is literally like 0.15 to 0.3 milligrams. Yeah. It's nothing.
Barely anything.
It's
like, a drop.
Exactly. People are always asking, how much water do I put in the vial? It's like, dude, it doesn't matter. Work backwards. Like, what is your dose, right? It doesn't matter if it's a 5 milligram, 10 milligram, but they're so life-changing and game-changing. And that's what blows me away is that when people come off of them, they don't have the same bad habits. They don't want to start eating crappy food anymore.
Let's do some speculation here, Jay. So because it seems to affect across the board, kind of this hedonistic processing of the brain, because you are seeing
obsessive compulsive stuff.
Yeah, you are seeing it affect people with alcohol, cigarette smoking, sex addiction. So interesting, right? It's not just food. You're hearing lots of reports. I don't know. I know there's studies going on now about that. Is there any? Let's speculate.
Yeah.
Can you see any potential negatives that this may cause issues with pleasure processing, with who knows?
I mean, who knows? It's possible. I mean, I would say the negative effects are definitely heightened if you're not living a clean lifestyle when you're taking these drugs. Because again, like you were saying,
it's not a panacea. Just take this.
Exactly. Like they think they can get away by abusing food still, eating too much. I'm not going to eat as much because it won't let me. And so I'll just continue to live like a hedon or eat like crap and blah, 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 not live in total control, right? Yeah. So I think that's where the risk factors are. And that's where the Dr. Hymans and Peter Attias of the world, glom on and say, oh, these drugs are dangerous and blah, 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 and they're causing muscle loss. And you said it earlier, if you don't, and I know I'm sure Seeds and Dr. T and I talked about this, but if you don't eat enough protein and you don't bone-bearing resistance training, you will have muscle loss.
That's just anytime you cut your calories.
But that's just how profound these drugs are. And when you start getting into the triple stage, quadruple stage, and even longer, bigger agonists, you're going to have even more of that because they're increasing metabolism. When I first started using Retatrutide, which was in August of last year, we had no idea how to dose it. It was like the studies in obese, insulin-resistant people were taking like 6 milligrams a week. So I was like, this is a true story, guys. I took 3 milligrams to see what would happen.
And you get nauseous? What happened?
No, it doesn't cause nausea. But dude, I'm not kidding you. My appetite went through the roof.
Oh, wow. You got hungrier?
Went crazy. And then I started telling people, I'm like, there's no way insulin-resistant fat people can take this because they're going to want to eat all the time. But the reality was the dose was way too high. It was way too high. So I actually kind of threw it off, or what we were telling people was like, if you're going to take this, you also have to use tirzepatide for the appetite suppressing effects, because we all felt that. We all know what that's like. But it was just too high of a dose. And so it's like the typical big pharma, right? Like it's start high, go higher, how we make money, versus the Dan Duchesne, start low, go slow.
I actually think that's the biggest, even of course we know the potential muscle loss with the GLP-1s if to the point you just made, if you don't work out, you don't eat enough protein. But I think the biggest problem is the dosing. You still have these big companies, like almost every, we just did a thing, I don't know if you knew this or not, but we took a group of 55 people through a GLP-1. So we did a whole GLP-1 course. We coached them. We did live Zoom calls once a week with them together. And it was really interesting to see. And I would say 90+% of anybody with a challenge was the people that were just could not eat because they are taking
they hit plateaus.
Their
calories are low. They lost their initial 20 pounds or whatever, but now they're eating 1,000 calories a day. Can't lose any more weight. We actually had to reverse diet people in that group quite often to get them to kind of build their metabolism.
And we had to send them back to their doctor, because we're not doctors, to tell them to lower their dose.
Just play one on the internet, guys.
But that's what I mean. Literally, what I realized, and I've had family and friends that have tried it and been like, "Oh my God, it was too much for me. I got nauseous." I'm like, "Well, that's because you started this dose. Dude. You should have started with a micro dose and slowly gone up, and then I bet you would not have had any of those issues."
By the way, Adam, that's only with the compound pharmacies. When you get the prescription,
that's what I mean,
like the brand name stuff.
It comes in.
You click it. Already. Your dose is the mass dose.
That's the biggest problem, I think, and those are the biggest companies that are. That's all the big ones. So I do think a lot of the noise that we hear out there of the negative effects are closely correlated with the dosage.
Of course it is.
And if you actually started everybody on a very low dose and slowly crept them up, I bet you would eliminate 80% of the negative stuff that you hear about it out there.
I'd say 90, and you would have none of the side effects.
Yeah.
Because if you were coaching them like you guys were doing with a cohort, they couldn't fail.
Yeah.
They're eating enough protein, they're training with weights. Yeah. That's where people fail. And again, I've said this on a number of podcasts, not your guys yet, but this is why it doesn't work. If you're a fat person and you're metabolically dysregulated and you start on 2 milligrams or 5 milligrams, unfortunately, of say semaglutide or tirzepatide, and you stop eating, you see the weight drop off in the first 2 weeks, and you're like, this is a fucking miracle.
Yeah.
And so you're so happy and you're so excited, but you don't have us coaching you. And all of a sudden,
metabolic adaptation.
3 weeks later, your thyroid breaks. You can't process calories anymore. I mean, it's like you're a nightmare. You become a metabolic emergency. And then it's like you go to the airwaves or you're a doctor and you tell everybody how shitty it is. And that's what's happened because so many people were not coached on how to do these. But Adam, you're 1,000,000,000% right. It was always about the dose. And again, Tim Ferriss, the difference between a pill and a poison is always the dosage.
Yeah. Along those lines, because when the GLP-1s first started, kind of creating some noise, you had a lot of people in the fitness industry that were panicking. Like, oh, why is anybody going to want to work with a trainer? Why is anyone? Now we think it's the complete opposite.
Of course.
I think this is going to increase the interest in working 100%. With a coach or a trainer. Are you seeing that?
Almost mandates it. It almost mandates it because if you do not have an intelligent person now coaching you and guiding you, you are headed for catastrophic failure.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you guys already know. I mean, you guys have been in this game a long time. I mean, like, if you have thyroid destruction and total, like, metabolic, just call it disruption after that, I mean, these people, they can't lose weight no matter what they do, no matter how far they diet down, how far you lower their calories, how much you reverse diet them. I mean, they've got severe metabolic issues. And so you can avoid that by doing what we're talking about, which is microdosing them and then having them follow the right protocol.
What does it look like in the compounding space with this? Because once this started to explode, I said, they're going to try and figure out how to get the generics off the market so that they can capture. This is a huge, we're talking about potentially the largest revenue producer, period, end of story of all time, because of its effect on obesity, diabetes, maybe its effect on autoimmune issues and other things. But I'm like, you can go through compound pharmacy and get it for a fraction. What are you seeing on that front? Are they trying to go after them?
So it's a good question. As I told you guys, I just talked to like one of the biggest attorneys in the peptide space, and he works for the compounders. He also represents sometimes individual doctors or clinicians that are, sued based on their prescribing of GLP-1s. He doesn't know. He said that right now the peptide space and the compounding space is as clear as mud. That was his exactly quote.
It's like Wild Wild West right now.
Yeah.
Total Wild Wild West. You've got compounders, major compounders suing the FDA and winning. You've got the FDA attempting, as you guys know, what they did in September of last year. Again, all this happened right after I left you guys. Like it was like a month and a half later when I saw you guys. They classified 27 peptides as what is considered class 2, which means potentially, not unsafe, potentially unsafe.
BPC was on there.
I know. How is BPC on there?
All of the peptides that actually work, that we all know and love, were classified in there. And then they've, quote unquote, I just found this out. I didn't even know. I found this out last week. They've expanded that now, where they removed BPC oral capsules and said there's some clinical benefit in that, which is kind of LOL, because we all know that injectable BPC works better than that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think the question is, or I think the comment is, it's to be determined. We definitely know that RFK is talking about peptides. I mean, that's like his buzzword in all of his tweets. He's like, I want to, withdraw or roll back some of the FDA's restrictions on peptides and supplements and amino acids and all these things. I mean, I've saved that Twitter quote. It's like on my desktop because I'm like, oh wow, maybe people like us are going to be able to, yeah. But I mean, who really knows? I just know this. Like I've said this before and I'll say it again. The genie is out of the bottle with peptides and bioregulators. You can't restrict them. When there's a will, there's a way. When there's a demand, there's a consumer.
Yeah.
And there will be people that will find them. And again, like you said, I mean, the research chemical companies, because I just asked this guy this question. Literally, we had this call on Monday. And I said, what was the exact volume of research chemical peptide sales last year in comparison to GLP-1s? And he laughed and he said, it's funny you asked me that because I had to actually do that math. In the entire world, there was over 207, I mean, it's chump change. This is like big pharma couch seat money. 275 million all told worldwide in research peptide chemical sales in 2023. In Mounjaro sales alone, it was $5 billion.
Just Mounjaro.
Woo. Just Mounjaro. Wow. Semaglutide is bigger than Mounjaro. He doesn't even know that number. So the reality is this:
that they're looking at it like it's like you're not worried.
They don't care. Big pharma is, like you said, they want everything in pens. They want everything controlled. They want the compounders to not be able to make the generic, byproducts. Because you know what they were doing, right? They were taking terzapatide and then like changing a signaling molecule and making it terzapatide Ha or amidate or whatever, right? So they were like, it doesn't violate the patent. But the Lilly patent attorneys, which obviously makes Mounjaro, they caught on to this. And so they sent cease and desist letters to everybody in the industry. Research chemical companies like Limitless, Peptide Sciences got it, and so did all the compounders. They all got it. And so it was like, if we know or we find out that you're making this and you're violating the quote-unquote patent of Mounjaro, which owns the marketplace, then we're going to come after you. They haven't come after him yet. They did send the cease and desist letters. Most of the smarter people stopped making, call it generic terzapatide. Because that's the one thing you don't want, right? If they do come after you, and I've seen this with my friends in the compounding space, if you break a cease and desist and continue to sell it, they'll come after you a second time, but guess what they end up doing? The IRS comes after you. And the IRS figures out how much you sold illegally, not violating the patent, and comes after you for that. So it's like, and believe me, this is how smart the compounders are. I mean, I'm not the compounders, but Big Pharma is. They know how much is actually in circulation from a raw material standpoint because they own the patent to the materials. So they can calculate how much that individual compounder sold illegally. Wow. Yes. Can you imagine?
And what you just mentioned, by the way, is interesting with the peptides because they took BPC and they put the cease and desist out there. And so then what the compound pharmacies did is they created pentadeca arginine, which is BPC with an arginine molecule attached.
And that's what they're all doing. But I'm telling you, Lilly.
That's what I'm using right now is pentadeca arginine.
Lilly has caught on to what people are doing, again, in the GLP-1 space. And if you're trying to sell terzapatide as a compounder or as a research chemical company, you're walking on hot coals. Because it's definitely very risky. Now, again, the high level, the 503B and the 503A and the 503C compound pharmacies who say, I paid all this money and walked all the steps I had to do for the FDA to give me the ability to sell this. They'll still scream and say, I can sell this. And then if you guys remember last year, there was like that emergency use case where they ran out of Mounjaro. And so they were allowing them to sell it. But now they've overruled that. That was as of October of this year. So it's like, again, technically, if you're selling tirzepatide and you're a research chemical company or a compounder, you better be selling the format, the patented format of Mounjaro, and you better be doing it through their chain of command. If you're not, you're basically breaking the wall.
Wow.
But who's enforcing it, right? Again, talk to an attorney, talk to any of the smart attorneys. They're going to say they don't even have at the FDA right now the actual means to enforce because there's so many compounders selling it and so many research chemical companies selling it. I think, guys, honestly, I think truth, when it comes to shove, I think reality is like, don't kill anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't kill anybody.
Don't be too noisy.
And peptides, as we know, don't kill people. Yeah. There's nothing out there in the peptide space that you could over-inject that is going to kill you. They just don't do that. They're organic molecules. They're signaling molecules. So, that's what I think most of the people in the compounding and the research chemical space go by is just the reality that like, hey, we're not going to kill anybody and we're mostly helping people.
Hey, sorry to interrupt you. Look, are you lifting weights, eating a ton of food, and struggling? You're not packing on any muscle. You're not building any muscle at all. You're not getting stronger. Well, check it out. We have a hard gainer guide. This can be your ultimate resource to turn that around. Pack on some muscle mass with our hard gainer guide. It's totally free. You can get it by downloading it, clicking on the link in the description below. Why? So you just said something. Why are peptides so interesting, and why are they so different from pharmaceuticals or traditional drugs?
Yeah. So it's a very simple answer. They absolutely treat the fundamental root cause of whatever it is the illness, the disease, or the dysregulation is versus big pharma medications. When they break down in the system, they're petroleum distillate, they cause side effects. And then those side effects can break down other things in other systems. So you have issues, whereas with peptides, you don't have that. And if we start talking about bioregulators, where it gets really crazy, they're tissue specific, right? So you can take an oral, which is, by the way, it's so weird in the United States right now, a bioregulator is a supplement. GRAS classifies them as a supplement. So there's nothing illegal about selling bioregulators.
And are they still peptides?
Yeah, they're technically peptides, but the patents are in Russia. It's Dr. Victor Kavinson, and they work a little bit different in that they actually are targeting biological system or organ systems. So it's like there's a peptide, a bioregulator for the heart. There's a bioregulator for the kidneys. There's a bioregulator for the thymus gland. There's a bioregulator for pretty much every organ or biological system in the body. And so taking those specifically,
I was going to say, so taking a bioregulator gets that organ to operate better.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's optimizing all of the organs itself. So if you're an aging man or a woman, like my wife right now, is doing an ovary bioregulator, and she's 53 and going through perimenopause, like all 53-year-old women, but she's like in her 20s, you know what I'm saying? And that's because of that, and she's talking to a lot of different women that are in their 50s and stuff that are using these too, and they're all having the same effect. So they're really positive and I would say even mind-boggling, but we don't even know yet in the United States, how profound they could be because there's almost no one using them. And even more so, being the science guy that you are, there's very little information unless you can read Russian manuals and Russian peer review because they've been used in Russia for 65 years.
65?
That long?
65 years, since the 40s, yes.
They remind me of glandulars. They remind me, remember glandulars will sell that way, right? This is for the thymus, but this is different.
These are incredible. I tell guys, if you're 45 or older, you should be taking Libidon, which is the prostate bioregulator, and doing 2 10-day courses a year because it literally goes to work shrinking the prostate gland. It's incredible.
And have you tried it?
I have.
What do you know?
Absolutely. So I'm very open about this. I've had a prostate issue. My PSA is negligible, but I've always had where I'd have to wake up at least once to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night and sometimes twice. Since I started taking that, it's once and sometimes none.
Okay.
So it definitely is working on shrinking the prostate gland. But again, and you guys aren't this old yet, but once you're in your 50s and you're a man, you're dealing with prostate hypertrophy. It's impossible to go away with it. It's 100% universal. So it's if you're waking up 2 or 3 times to piss in the middle of the night versus once, that's going to disturb your sleep. So it's a big issue. So these things have a lot of therapeutic benefit when used correctly. And the craziest part about them is there's other ones that I'm finding out. that the Russians haven't even brought into the United States market. So there's like 3 or 4 different bioregulators for the prostate. But the one that we all know about that's flooding the United States market is called Libidon, and I've used it. I've done 4 courses of it in 2 years.
Have you tried any other bioregulators?
I have. So I've used like 6 of them. Pineolon, which is for
the pineal gland.
Dude.
What are you supposed to get from that?
Pineolon is insane.
Yeah. So
if you're a meditator or you get deep, into stillness or silence, or you just like to sit in nature with, nothing going on, man, you can get into the zone way faster on that bioregulator.
Wait, speaking of the pineal gland, we just, this makes me laugh because conspiracy theorists are like 100 and 0 now.
Yes.
They just came out and said, oh yeah, fluoride lowers people's IQs. Did it really build up does it really calcify or build up in the pineal gland?
I mean, I would say that it does. I don't know how hard, it would be very difficult to scientifically prove it, but I definitely know that using fluoride-based toothpaste or fluoride-based rinses or something like that definitely dumps people down. There's a lot of hidden studies that have been going on since like the 20s and 30s that, of course, obviously big pharma and the medical establishment suppresses. But you guys already know this because we don't do this. But I mean, like if you're somebody that doesn't have the resources to drink like filtered water or bottled water or whatever it is, like, and you're drinking water out of a tap out of a major city, you're definitely behind the 8 ball. Yeah. Right. And I would say there's other ways they have, in doing this. And it's not really conspiracy theory because there's science out there. It's just suppressed. You can't find it. But I would say that it definitely it delays reaction and delays timing. I think a lot of, and again, I mean, it makes sense, right? Like poverty-stricken people or people, in lower socioeconomic conditions, have to drink water out of the sink. And I mean, there's reasons why they don't do as well as people who don't drink water out of the sink. So there's a lot in there.
Why did they put the fluoride in the first place? Was it a great, easy way to get rid of it?
No, no. I mean, there's a lot of stories about like how it improves tooth enamel.
Yeah, so they just
that was the big selling point was everybody should take it for tooth enamel.
I mean, there's a massive study that was just released that obviously that now is making it illegal to have fluoride, in a lot of different states, and states are passing stuff. But I mean, if you look deep into that research, you'll see that it definitely is dumbing people down. It's doing a lot of crazy stuff. So.
Yeah, the study came out on that.
I mean, we had lead everywhere too. They had to get rid of, and the whole like in gasoline, they found that like it was dumbing down society.
That's the way unleaded. All right, so let's talk about. We're now 4 years past the height of COVID. Looking back now, we could see just all the insanity that happened. Last time I looked, I think only 12 or 16% of people now get the COVID vaccine. Everybody's like, yeah, I don't want to touch that type of deal. Yeah. Are there things people can do or take after they've gotten the vaccine? They got it and they're like, I might notice some issues or whatever. Yes. Are there things they can do to
heal
help
injuries
their body?
From it? Or
100%. So the number one thing a person can do who's been multiple, let's just call it multi-V'd and multi-B'd is start living insulin controlled, right? Because the spike protein, which is again scientifically evident now, does leach. It does cause cellular damage. It does cause potential autoimmune disease. So what's really happening and what we're seeing is, you guys all know this, like America is obese. America is unhealthy. America is insulin resistant. The vax just makes all of those things amplified. So if you're not changing your habits, you're not listening to Mind Pump, you're not listening to Jay Campbell, you're not living insulin controlled, you're not exercising, you're not doing resistance training, you're not eating enough protein, blah, blah, blah. You're not using GLP-1 peptides, hopefully, if you have fat loss problems. The vax, if you got it, is just making your life even worse. So how you can heal yourself is obviously, first off, become insulin sensitive, start living insulin controlled. I think when I say live insulin controlled, I think people sometimes, Jay, what does that mean, Jay? Yeah. It means regulate your carbohydrate consumption, right? Stop eating refined foods, HFCs, shit that's in boxes, which is, again, the average American eats all the time, right? Seed oils, all the things you guys talk about in all your stuff. That's what you have to do. And then if you really want to get, dialed in particulate, you can add a GLP-1 peptide, you can microdose it, you can get hormonally optimized, you can start using therapeutic testosterone. I mean, I always tell people this now, like if you've been vaxxed and you're not on testosterone, you probably have a hormonal deficiency or dysregulation because that is causing that, because it's also leading to insulin resistance and obesity. So check your hormones, make sure you're looking at whether or not you have a hormone deficiency. I mean, you guys, I think it's pretty obvious now go to any airport. I mean, guys like us, we live in our own cocoons and our own echo chambers of other fit, healthy people, right? So it's like, we're talking to the entrepreneur grind and hustle, and all of us are like fit and exercising and doing all these things. But like when you go out into the real world and you look around, and again, I always say go to the airport, right? It's like, it's bad out there. What day was it? Monday, when I flew from Tampa to Houston for that podcast, there were two people that were sitting in front of me, and they were not much older than me. And it was definitely a husband and wife. And I'm not kidding you, I didn't time this, but they were sitting aisle center, and then a young girl who was not with them was sitting in the bathroom, in the window, and she had to go to the bathroom. It took them 6 minutes to get up out of the seat for this girl to cross over. But that is the average American today. They're so bad off. It's just bad. And again, I know I don't want to judge or condemn them, but it's like, take that poor health, that kind of, not training, not exercising, not eating right, and then give them 3 shots and a couple of Bs. And you wonder what's going on. But it's not a death sentence to have the vax. We've created my email list, and, inside we have an anti-V protocol of peptides and bioregulators and supplements you can take. There's a lot of things you can do. You can take nattokinase. Nattokinase really helps with leaching the spike protein out of the cells. It improves vascular function. I mean, about SS31, there's VIP. There's a ton of stuff, LL37. There's a ton of amazing peptides that strengthen immunity, thymosin alpha-1. There's so many great things that you can use, but I would always say that, again, those are just really the tip of the iceberg. It's lifestyle change first.
Always.
It's always lifestyle change. But again, a lot of these people, and this is what they'll tell you when you talk to them, they have no energy. Yeah. And is it due to the vax, or is it due to their poor lifestyle, or is it a combination of both?
It's hard to get that momentum going when you're like that,
Yeah. What do you see on the forefront in the peptide space? Anything getting you excited?
Dude, again, the GLPs with the 4 and 5 stage agonist peptides. I can't even imagine.
It makes sense that they're going to go anti-catabolic or focus that because of the negative. Yeah. Do you think any myostatin inhibiting compounds?
That's what it is. 100%.
Really?
Yeah. So it's a very advanced. It's like it's follistatin, myostatin inhibiting. So there's another guy that I should probably get on your guys' podcast, and maybe he's already been on you. Do you guys know Dr. Dan Stickler from Stanford?
That name sounds familiar.
Dude, so he runs the big performance lab in Austin. It's called Apeiron. So he's amazing. That's a doctor to bring on your show because his knowledge is like at a different level. But like he's talking about plasmapheresis. So they're using plasma injections with myostatin inhibiting call them peptides or small molecules, along with follistatin. And he's talking about like earth-changing stuff, like literally taking a normal, not fit, but not fat or morbidly obese person and giving them these injections and literally adding 8 to 10 pounds of skeletal mass in 2 weeks. Real skeletal mass without transcription or side effects or anything like that. So like I said, we're on the verge of a golden age. It's just a matter of, I think, whether or not we blow ourselves up or not. You know what I mean? Because that's the one question, does World War III happen, or does the United States go into a civil war? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I just see all this amazing stuff that's happening in the biohacking or biological or whatever you want to call it, the new medical or new biomedical world. And it's just amazing.
Do you ever communicate to your audience about just the value of the struggle of going down that path? Because we often get this question asked to us. It's like, if a miracle pill existed, which it doesn't, but if it did, do you guys think that would solve a lot of our problems? I say, well, no, it could solve some of your fitness and physical issues, but so much comes from just the process of the struggle and the waking up and the workout and I got to develop a different relationship. Do you ever talk to your audience about that? Because that's a big thing that I think, I think if I just snapped my fingers and got people, it'd be like winning the lottery. I mean, how many of those lottery winners end up going bankrupt?
Almost all of them.
Yeah.
Well, 100%. I think it's a really important topic of conversation because the process is everything. I mean, like they've always told us, right? It's not about the end game; it's the journey. It's like the process or the ride along is like the value. If we go spiritual for a second, I like to think that all of us are so much more than our bodies. We're these soul energies, these spiritual beings, our higher selves, whatever you want to call it. And it's like there's so much more, but being here, you have to realize that part of the process is evolving and growing through the contrast, right? So it's like if we had a pill or a super GLP-1 peptide that like made you not have to work out, then what fun would that be?
Right.
Because the grind is part of the process, right? Yeah. Getting out there and training and lifting and eating right and doing all these things to see the benefit that comes over time, that's the real value. And if you didn't do that, then like what would you really be learning?
Well, the other side of me also, just to play devil's advocate, I wonder if it would actually get more people to go on the journey. I've seen more people start exercising who hated it and would never work out because they wanted a GLP-1, lost some weight.
I agree.
And all of a sudden they're like, you know what? I'm going to start going to the gym. I know several people like that.
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree that it's an adjunct. It's profound, but I still think, I mean, look, those people probably though have good influences in their life. They have one of us surrounding them or coaching them or counseling them. So they understand, right? But for the people that don't have any of that, I would still say that even if you gave them that, limitless pill, they would default to bad habits. And let's say this, and this is incredibly important, and you guys know this, until a person finds themselves worthy of making the change, they're going to default.
Of course.
Yeah.
They're going to go back. And so that's why so many bodybuilders, right? Like, because we all know all of us have a mild form of muscle dysmorphia. That's just who we are, right? Like, we want to be bigger, we want to be leaner, we want to be better. But it's like, if you can't eventually get to a place where when you look in the mirror, you find value in who you are and you're like, you know what, I got this, I feel good about myself, you're not going to be healthy.
Yeah.
You're going to abuse drugs, whatever it is, whether it's pills or steroids or whatever, but you're always going to be doing something to feel high versus just doing something to be like, hey man, I love who I am.
Yeah, for
Jay,
sure.
I've been out of the bodybuilding circuit now for well over 5-6 years now, and so I'm not as privy to like what's the latest stack and what people are doing. Like this whole peptide wave really hadn't come when I was doing it.
Yeah, no, I understand.
But all of it makes it so interesting to me. Like, God, what would I have used during this time during my cut? Like, what are you privy to? Like some of the common stacks and how bodybuilders.
I just knew it was going to go this way.
I'm just so curious how. I mean, I could imagine the
GLP-1 pre-contest would be.
I mean, because one of the hardest parts, and I talked about this on my little journey that I just went through of documenting everything.
Yeah, I saw. I've been following you, man. You got how much body fat did you lose?
So I'm down to 10%. So I'm down to I put on 23 pounds of muscle and lost about 6 pounds of fat.
Unreal, man.
So it's been a cool.
And you're not using a GLP?
No. I came off of it. So part of why I gained so much of that back was previously I took a GLP-1. I took Triple-Hormone-Receptor, but I did it.
Notice how he said Trenzipitide?
Yeah.
Let's just slip.
That's a different one.
Freudian slip there. Yeah. Did not take Trenzipitide. Jay was not that. Yeah. But the experiment and why I did it and documented for the audience was actually I wanted to remove my trainer brain and I wanted to just eat like what I thought a normal person would.
Sure.
So as it crushed the appetite, I would let it do its course.
Sure.
If I didn't feel like working out because I was so tired, I didn't work out.
Sure.
If I knew I was way behind on protein, just because I knew I wouldn't go do it unless I felt hungry.
Yeah.
And I lost a ton of weight. You know, I lost 30 pounds.
Yeah, no, I saw it. You looked amazing. Yeah.
And so I dropped all that weight, but I had lost a lot of muscle too. And so then I came off of it, and then it was, here's my journey to come back. So
right.
you watched me come build it back with, now this is my trainer brain, adding protein, being consistent and everything like that. But anyways, going through the GLP-1 process originally, I thought, man, one of the hardest parts of getting super shredded is just learning to be comfortable with being hungry. Not a lot of people can do that. And that's what you see is these people that have this ability to get down to 3 or 4% body fat, you have to learn to get comfortable of feeling hungry.
So that's where it changes to answer your question. Retatrutide eliminates the hunger.
So, okay.
That's where we're at.
That's what bodybuilders eat now is pre-contest.
That's literally where we're at. And that's why, I'll definitely connect you guys with Jason because he'll be a world of amazing knowledge and stuff. And you guys can get deep down that rabbit hole. But he's like, he's like that whole like starving, struggling, tilapia and broccoli and white rice, like you don't have to do that anymore. Like you can literally get into 4 or 5, 6% body fat and live like a normal life. I mean, you're still going to be in a deficit, right?
Yeah.
And you're going to be doing your cardio and you're going to be lifting and doing all that stuff, but you don't have to suffer.
By the way, we are running a sale this month on some workout programs. MAPS Aesthetic and MAPS Symmetry, both very popular programs, both 50% off. If you're interested, go to mapsfitnessproducts.com, but use the code December50 for the discount. All right, here comes the show.
No, so one of the things, I mean, when you get to that level of the body fat percentage and depleting like that, naturally, without
you're
using
near death.
Oh yeah, and you're also. I'm dreaming about food. Between meals, I'm thinking about the next meal. I'm chewing gum and
just want to eat that one pizza.
Yeah, I mean that's how. I mean you just have, and in order to get to that level of leanness, you have to learn to get comfortable with that. Yeah. So but then I remember what it was like to be on the GLP-1, where it's like I didn't even think about food. Never even.
And that's why we're in a totally new frontier. But to what you were saying, like what is new? I mean, there's so much new. I mean, I think we have to mention DHT, right? So dihydrotestosterone, everybody in the clinical space knows that DHT is like 10 times more anabolic than testosterone. But in the science, up until, let's say, in the last couple of years, they just didn't understand that there was a way to actually, formulate dihydrotestosterone in an oil-based solution. Now, there have been guys in the last 10 years internationally making gels of DHT in like a super really low dose. And they were literally giving, I'm not kidding you, they were giving them to men like in the international community and Asian stuff like that as fertility control. So you could literally like keep a guy suppressed so he couldn't get pregnant by using a tiny microdose of DHT. But now there are guys out there in the underground space that are formulating DHT formulations combined with testosterone, and that is a game changer.
Really?
So you basically, to just go down a rabbit hole for a second, like nobody really knows yet. They're still looking at it, but it's probably like 1/7 to 1/9 of DHT to testosterone is the perfect anabolic blend. And what I mean by that is you won't crush estrogen. So most
because DHT is anti-estrogenic.
Exactly. Most anabolic drugs, as you guys know, from our friends that are bodybuilders and stuff like that, they have side effects when they're abused at higher dosages, and then they all massively create issues with estrogen production and suppression. Eventually, like almost all anabolics, if you take too high of a dose for too long a time, will literally crush your estrogen. And then, as you know, with crushed estrogen, you have no sex drive. You feel like a eunuch.
You hurt.
Your libido is gone. Your mental energy is gone. Yes, exactly. I mean, you might be a fucking cyborg, right? You look amazing, but you have like nothing going on, right? Yeah. So like there's guys out there, really, really smart guys now that are like making blends of DHT and testosterone that would be the perfect anabolic. So imagine having the anabolic effects and growth effects of like a tren acetate or a tren anathate with a DHT testosterone blend that causes no side effects. That's where we're going. So there's a lot of crazy stuff that's in the marketplace. I mean, obviously, if we start talking about GLPs and anti-catabolic and stuff like that, like I mean, like you said, dude, like a 4 and 5 stage agonist, I can't even imagine what that does to the physique transformation.
So what are some of the? I'm on a typical year of bodybuilding for me is you have your off season where we are increasing calories, packing on muscle. So give me some ideas of things I would be that are newer on the newer age that I'm taking peptide wise. I already know, I know testosterone and hormone wise what I'd be doing, but okay, what am I taking to gain? And then when I transition over, okay, now it's prep time to cut, time to lean out. What are the like kind of most popular ones?
So, I mean, for sure in bulking phase, you're going to have obviously a higher dose of testosterone. You're going to have a tesamorelin or an ipamorelin in a high dose, or, obviously if you don't, well, we got to say it. A growth hormone is now readily accessible, right? And good growth hormone, like pharmaceutical quality growth hormone that comes in a pen. Not the Chinese growth hormone. Green tops, blue tops, yellow tops. Hey, bro, I got hugotropin or hydrotropin. I mean, all that shit is gone. You can now get it readily available. So I would say in a growth phase, for sure, testosterone and a growth hormone or a growth hormone agonist peptide like tesamorelin or ipamorelin. High calories. Some guys might want to use, an anabolic steroid like a darabolin or something like that, or even equipoise or something like that. That's still old school, but they're definitely using GLPs now year round. So if you're going to massively eat, right? Like you're going to be eating 45 to 6,000 calories a day because you want to gain, say, 10, 12 pounds.
Which is where I would be at when I'm trying to
Exactly. You're going to use a microdose of retatrutide because the retatrutide is going to process the calories way more efficiently. You're going to be able to absorb and handle those calories way more efficiently. And as I was telling you, dude, and you guys will see this when you use it, it doesn't kill your appetite at all. Now, if you took way too much, maybe. But what you notice is just enhanced metabolism, faster. It does so many crazy things, you guys. I'm not kidding you. Like, it actually makes your bowel movements like drier and cleaner. Like, you don't even have to wipe.
Justin, you hear that, Justin?
Dude, I'm literally not kidding you. It is such a profound drug. It's doing so many metabolic positive things. Like, that's some of the thing where it's just like,
you don't even have to wipe anymore.
You're like, what's going on? But
all of our wives are like, huh? Let's get this for our husband.
You're definitely going to be using Retatrutide in a microdose. And then I would say, what else would you take? Sloop. You want to use Sloop. You definitely want to use SS31. You already know that. SS31 amplifies androgen receptors, turns on androgen receptors a little bit more. I think you could probably use, depending on how hard you're training or heavy you're training, you could probably use a little microdose of BPC and TB500. Okay. Just for recovery.
Yeah.
Especially, again, if you're older, joint fragility and stuff like that, you probably want that. And then when I'm going to shift to the summer and, the shredding time, I'm going to stay on Retatrutide. I'm probably going to maybe go up a little tiny bit. And I'm probably honestly crazy enough, I'm going to incorporate more fasting because, again, it makes fasting a lot easier. And you already know that the benefits of fasting from autophagy, getting rid of senescent cells, the hormetic principles behind it, that's going to help you. Yeah. I would just say this, like a bodybuilder today versus a bodybuilder 5 to 10 years ago can stay way healthier. Yeah. Way healthier. Maintain biomarkers, not have horrible A1C levels. Because that's what, again, when Jason comes on, if you guys bring him on, you guys will love him talking about like what bodybuilders, like how bad bodybuilders abuse their A1C levels. Especially guys that are slamming calories, gaining 30 or 40 pounds in their winter season. He's like, how unhealthy it is. It's so bad. Yeah. And he's like, now with GLPs, you can avoid all of that. Yeah. He's like, trust me, I'm doing it. I'm coaching people that are doing this. And by the way, I'll send you guys his stuff and you can look at like a lot of his bodybuilders and you can see their transformations. But I mean, dude, GLPs have changed the game. Wow. They have just completely changed the game. The conditioning of bodybuilders now who know what they're doing, which, I don't know what that percentage is, but let's just say it's 5 to 6% of bodybuilders like on, at a competitive level. I mean, their physiques don't go from that like dramatic, boiler to being shredded anymore because they don't have to. They're just gaining 8 to 10 pounds of mass like every winter season and they don't even really get fat.
That's awesome.
That's wild.
Yeah.
So cool. So Jay, right now, what do you do most for business? Do you coach mostly? I love your content online. I think you have some of the best articles. I said this to you last time you were on the show.
Yep.
If you want to read about peptides, the science behind them, and you want to be able to understand it, like Jay really breaks it down very easy. Some of the best content, but what's your main business at the moment? Yeah,
so right now I'm partnered in a new company. It's not new, it's been out for 2 months. It's called BioLongevity Labs, and within 12 to 15 months, we plan on becoming the biggest bioregulator selling and research peptide selling company in the world. Now, check this out. We're going to have our peptides in pens. So all of our peptides will be in just like the Mounjaro pens or the growth hormone pens. So it's going to be manufactured actually in a peptide manufacturing facility here in California. So as you know, that's the FDA registered sterility controlled process, and it'll also be GMP compliant. So it'll essentially be almost a compound pharmacy without the compound pharmacy regulations that the FDA approves. So it's going to be really close to tell the difference. There probably won't be much of a difference. And again, our goal is to basically, essentially get more people around the world on bioregulators, but also I have a large private membership group, which you guys have helped to fill up. It's got about 650 people in it now, and all of those people pay, anywhere from like $99 a month to $249 a quarter. I sell, I have 9 courses now, which also do very, very well. And then obviously I'm like one of the biggest affiliate salespeople in the world for like various companies and stuff like that. Sure. So my business is amazing. And again, you guys helped me so much last year. You really blew my brand up. So I'm always eternally grateful to you guys. But yeah, I honestly think that BioLongevity Labs is going to become a centerpiece for people finding out about bioregulators. And then depending on how much the FDA changes things, again, if RFK does what he says he's going to do, it might actually even become an option for clinicians to purchase.
So move out of gray market into the real.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I don't know if it'll really move out. Like it'll technically probably still be gray market. It just depends on how much restrictions are removed in the FDA. Because at the end of the day, guys, right now, and I know you guys know this because you deal with Transcend, there are literally hundreds of thousands of doctors that are buying peptides from research chemical companies and then
are they really?
Their clients. Oh, dude. I know all of them for the most part, And it's like I laugh because I'm like, look, I can't advocate you do this. You're definitely not quote unquote above board by doing this, but then they come to me and they're like, dude, I'm not paying X that's 15X when my client or my patient can't afford it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And this is a way that they can afford it. So it's a tough deal, right? Because like in between, you want to help as many people as you can, right? As a doctor, you take an oath, do no harm, right? But at the same time, like some of these people can't afford it. I mean, what you were saying, Sal, at the very beginning of the show, if Lilly has their way, I mean, imagine how bad they're going to make it. They're going to jack the prices to the point where who can even afford a GLP-1 peptide?
Yeah.
So thankfully, there's people out there like me, and obviously there's a lot of other ones that are saying, oh no, let's teach people how to do these themselves. Yeah, there's a little bit more risk involved, but who cares, because now it makes it more affordable to the average Joe.
Yep.
Yeah, good deal. Well, you're my guy to call.
Yeah.
I call you whenever I want to know like the real deal, the
latest,
especially the cutting edge stuff. I send this guy a text. He responds within 3 minutes. I'm like, oh, cool. It's a good time.
With all the details and a study link to it.
Oh yeah, that's a good time.
Not always a study, but the details.
Personal experience.
Yeah, Jay, I appreciate you coming on the show again.
I appreciate all you guys. I love you guys.
Looking forward to Friday. All of us hanging out together at the party. So always a good time.
Thank you.
Thank you, man.
All right, I know you liked that episode. If you did, check this one out. 30% body fat. For men, this is way too high. This is actually a bit high for women as well. So in today's episode, we're talking about how you can go from 30 to 10. What is 10% body fat? This is when you have a visible six-pack. Can you go from 30 to 10%? Yes, it's possible, but not if you guess along the way. So we're going to talk about how you can do that in today's episode.
Now, there's a huge range, right, of like body types.
Yes.
Some people can run a little bit heavier or a little bit higher body.